Hey everyone, and welcome to the January edition of 3030. I am your host, Pat Reinhardt, a conductor, and today we have reached a momentous milestone in the program's history where we are celebrating our 100th episode today. So that is just around 9 years, 100 months, 100 rants, and it is really exciting, really exciting for me personally and professionally, obviously. But again, it leaves me very thankful to, to everyone who comes and listens to those rants, every month. So thank you all, so much. And I'm sure a lot of you are wondering, well, 100th episode, he's probably going to do something special, right? And the answer to that, everybody, is nope. We are going to do the exact same show because that's why you all keep coming back. So let's see what happened over the last 30 days in search and get there and get through it. So again, today we're going to be talking about Google's consistent tremors over the last 30 days and what I'm seeing and hearing across different verticals. We're going to talk about spam. All of the spam that has been, kind of infesting the SERPs. I'm going to talk about authorship a little bit because there's a debate here on how to handle it and how important it actually is. We are going to mourn the second death of our beloved FAQ and how-to rich results, which have dropped completely from Google once again. I will continue with my regular monthly segment on This Month in SGE, and I will close out the program just with a thank you. But let's get into it because we only have 30 minutes. Number one, let's talk about Google's consistent tremors over the last 30 days. So one of the big things to recognize is that the November updates were very, had a lot of teeth, right? The November updates, there was a core update and there was a reviews update. The core update was big. The reviews update appears to have been bigger, and that is the one that everyone believes is causing a lot of the crap that we're seeing in the in the results right now. So from that perspective, as you can see, through the end of December and right up until yesterday, Google has seen has been consistently somewhat volatile, but there's been 4 of these big tremors that have come through, right? And that's that's something worth noting. And those were on December 22nd, December 30th, January 6th, and January 11th. One of the bigger ones was on New Year's Eve. Of course, what a perfect day to roll out something or to adjust something, because as everyone who regularly joins the program knows, I don't believe in unconfirmed updates. I only believe in Google turning the dial up and turning the dial down on things that they have already rolled out. But from that perspective, it's been really rough out there. It's been rough seas. It's been rough sledding. And across a lot of different verticals, you can see this, right? So for retailers, retailers are losing out on page one visibility, the spam, and the crowding of the SERP. So this is, this is one, that has been somewhat consistent through it because, I've seen, violent swings for retailers depending on what, what they're selling. But for the most part, now what I'm seeing is that, through December and into January, because a lot of retailers did okay. They did okay through the November updates, but really, once the reviews update ended at the end of November and then heading into December and then now into January, a lot of page one visibility is being lost to the SERPs. And you can see here that you can see that green bar, just getting smaller and smaller. Which is page one visibility, is just getting smaller and smaller as time goes on. And here's another retailer, that is seeing the same, that's seeing the same thing. Now, one of the big things is that, sites that relied heavily on review content, obviously, are having probably the hardest time here. And what they're seeing is that a lot of parasite SEO and people piggybacking onto other site. We will get to that later in the presentation, what all that means. But that's what's really hurting your retailers right now. When you Google things like, I'll show you an example later. When you Google like Samsung HDTV plus a model number, what you're seeing sites that don't make sense. Like there's just a lot of sites out there that are ranking right now that are clearly either, AI created, or are just, completely fabricated review sites, and a lot of legitimate sites, even aggregators that a lot of people have had issues with over the years. They're suffering they're suffering a lot, which I'll show you in a couple of seconds here. So when you look at like an insurance provider right now, over the course of the last few months, I've been saying that there's been a big YMYL feel to a lot of these updates, meaning your money or your life, or any content that impacts your physical or financial well-being. And a lot of studies have come out, over the last week or so, or a couple of studies, have come out over the last couple of weeks, and are confirming that healthcare, seems to have been impacted, most heavily, from October, through, current day. And you can see that here. And I've been showing you graphs like this. They're all different companies, but I've been showing you graphs like this for the last several months, really since the October, core update rolled out. And as you can see that, insurance has had a really hard time. And I know I've shown in the past, healthcare sites as well that have had a really hard time. And the same thing goes for financial. Really, since those October updates, all these changes that Google has made, what they have really impacted is has really impacted these kind of YMYL spaces, because like retail, yes, they're losing page one visibility, but they're more shifting around, and I think that even though their SERPs are certainly messier than healthcare and insurance providers, they're not losing overall numbers of ranks. Their ranks are just shifting from page one down, and that's really because of this spam issue. That is not the problem with financial and healthcare, in my view. Is spam there? Yes, of course there's spam there, and that's part of the problem. That's why page one visibility is definitely being impacted. But the interesting thing is that a lot of these sites are just losing ranks altogether. They just don't rank for some terms anymore, and that's the biggest difference that I'm seeing from more transactional businesses to more B2B or B2C healthcare and financial companies. Though, they're just not ranking for things anymore. Whereas retail, it's just shifting around. It's just like a kind of a raging sea at the moment. But this is really fascinating, because this is what I'm seeing across all most healthcare and really all financial sites that I've been looking at is just this stark down into the right, trend that is happening, which is, obviously if you're in one of those verticals, that is something to take into account, right? Like you have to take that into account, that this is happening. And this is all leading to SGE. This is all leading to Google, integrating, AI into search. And, this is not great news for these sites, right? Like we knew that, these changes were going to be, were going to be disruptive. But I think that, all the doomsday commenters are saying when SGE, 50% of all traffic is going to be displaced, right? And the interesting part about that, I don't believe that for many sites, but the trends that I'm seeing here, and are pretty scary for financial, for YMYL sites, which is healthcare and financial sites, and insurance gets looped into that as well. Very, very stark differences in the behavior of what the SERPs look like and the behavior of these sites. Because again, financial and healthcare, they're just losing ranks altogether, not even ranking for things. Whereas retail, it's more just shifting around. And I'm seeing that around a lot of other, but those YMYL type sites, keep that in mind as you're moving as we move forward here, because this is going to be, something that, if you're in one of these sectors, I fear that 40 to 50% number may come true for you if it's not already happening right now. Just to answer the question in the chat, a couple of people asked, yes, everyone gets a copy of the deck at the end of the call and a recording if you want to listen to my beautiful voice once again. So moving on from there, let's talk about spam, right? So right now, and bonus points to anyone who gets the joke, but since November, again, as I said before, since the November updates have rolled out, this has been, this has been very problematic for a lot of folks. It's very bad out there. If you Google anything, I'm going to show you some examples in a minute. If you follow Lily Ray, Lily has been posting things all over the place. I'll show you some examples of that on everything that is, everything that is bad that's happening, and these terrible examples of all of these, these terrible sites, right? And a lot of it comes down to parasite SEO and piggybacking SEO. SEO. And terms that are not regularly used with a lot of folks, but so just so I can define those for you, what parasite SEO is, that's typically when a site is hacked and like random pages will be put on a subdomain, or be, they'll create something, they'll create something on a subfolder level, something for like Viagra or something like that, and all of a sudden there's just millions and millions of pages on a site, and they're just they're leeching off of the site like a parasite. Piggybacking SEO, that is when like large domain authority domains, quote unquote, kind of rent out space on their site. So they do this with a lot of affiliates, so that if affiliates can piggyback off of their domain authority and rank with their with their whatever content, but then ultimately if they make a sale, then a portion of that goes back to the main site that is renting the space. So that is something that is very common and very rampant. And from that perspective, it's one thing, so that's something to keep in mind, that's really what's happening here, right? Is that it's a lot of hack sites that are showing up. It's a lot of piggyback SEO. Again, people renting out space on larger domain authority domains. But for the most part, it's rough sledding for people trying to do this legitimately right now. So just keep that in mind. So to show you some examples, here's what I was talking about before. If you Google this, like Samsung 65 LED, TVH, right? That's their model number. Samsung is not ranking here. The manufacturer is not ranking here, and other sites that should be ranking, like a PC Richard or a Best Buy or things of that nature. Those sites are ranking below this site, which is called cleanitsupply.com, which is a janitorial supply company. Again, I have no issue with them selling janitorial supplies. That's totally fine. But again, for anyone who may not know this, like if you run a drop ship business, which I used to, you join wholesale groups, and those wholesale groups have catalogs, and those catalogs contain many different things. Like I used to sell appliances. I used to run a site called oneclickappliances.com, and we sold major appliances. But our wholesale group allowed us access to TVs and to car radios and things of that nature. This was many years ago. And we never sold those, but some companies, like if you belong to a wholesale group, you have access to sell these, and that's what's happening here. This site is just using the entire is trying to sell the entire catalog available to them, which is totally fine. But again, it doesn't make any sense for cleanitsupply.com to rank for a TV, to have like a TV with content that is 100% on thousands of other sites. And you would also think that the experience on this site would come into play, because I don't think anyone's going to set up an auto delivery to buy a TV every week. So when you take that into account, like this is really problematic here, and this is a good example, right? And good comment in the chat right here, if I can draw everyone's attention to it. Is this happening because Google is favoring sites that sell the product rather than the manufacturer of the product, who wouldn't be selling it to the end user? That is a great point, and that's part of it, right? But the problem is that I actually wouldn't expect Samsung, or like if they didn't sell it to the end user, to show up. But what's happened, I would expect Best Buy to be here. I would expect PC Richard to be here if you're in the Northeast. I would expect other electronic retailers to show up. This is not an electronic retailer. So, and again, this page is just spun up, and they have thousands of these on this site. So from that perspective, definitely something that's concerning. And as I said before, Lily Ray has been throwing out examples of this all over the place, and it's just unbelievable, like what you see. If I can draw your attention to the right hand side of the screen, where she says, "I've never seen as much spam as rampant all of Google I've seen in the last few weeks." And again, this was this is just about a month ago. You can see here that it's all of these parasite sites, it's all of these piggybacking sites, and it's not real results. What I would consider consider like a real result. This is all just garbage. That is all just garbage, right? And just to answer a question here as well, the losses seen across financial insurance industries, are those charts based on brand or non-brand traffic? Those are based on both. So it's an overarching view of the site. So it's all all keywords, but mostly if you dig into it, most of the losses are on non-brand. It's not on brand. So going back to this is a problem. Now, the good news here is that Google has acknowledged this, and they have acknowledged that this is a problem, right? And you can see here in these 3 tweets, is that, and I think that the main one to focus on, and you can read the other 2 yourselves, but the main one I want to focus on is the bottom one. Both situations are covering what was shared before here, and that's those 2 tweets right there. But the important part, to recap, we have changes coming to better deal with such situations. We're aware of it. We're taking steps to deal with it. It sometimes takes time to ensure solutions we put in place will scale and work well. Again, everyone has to recognize that Google is a big monolithic machine, and they can't just press a button and shoot something out there. It's going to take time, but it's good that they acknowledged it. Years ago, like 5 years ago, they never would have done this. They would have acknowledged this and said, like, oh yeah, there's a problem. That really only started after Danny Sullivan came over and started the search liaison account. But again, I think this is why we are seeing all of these tremors. To tie a bow around this and take it back to the beginning of the presentation, this is why we're seeing these tremors. This is Google adjusting the algorithm, and this is Google adjusting what they're what they want to see. Again, it is still problematic right now. This spam issue, not fixed at all, but again, it's something that is impacting pretty much everybody out there right now. But again, at least they're not denying the issue exists. So hang tight. Again, do not adjust your strategy. Google knows that there is a problem right now in the SERPs. This doesn't mean that you have to pivot or off anything you were planning. Hopefully, over the course of the next few months, we will see this. We will see this corrected. But unfortunately, this is not going to be something where we're going to see a button's going to get pushed overnight and all of a sudden it's going to get better. It's already getting a little better, but this is going to take time. And in my experience, we're probably looking at months, if not 6+ months, for this to actually work itself out, which makes it hard for people who have been negatively impacted by this. Moving on from that, let's talk about authorship. I talk about authorship all the time. Our last time together, I talked about creating author pages and making sure that Google can follow a path back to to understand who those people are, so that users can understand who those people are. Our favorite folks at The Verge, who called us all content goblins and said that SEOs were ruining the world, has this on their site now that says, if you're a regular reader of The Verge, you might have noticed some changes to our author bylines in recent months, that they're a lot longer with more details, name dropping, etc. You can thank Google for that. And the problem with this is that I think people misunderstand this, right? Number one, the people at The Verge are very angry. That's one finding from this whole experience. Number two, Google has said author bylines are not something that you do for Google. There's something to credentialize the people so that when users come in, they trust who has actually written this, right? But that also doesn't mean that authorship is not important and not used, from a ranking perspective. And again, I don't think of things as ranking factors. I think of it as, does this make sense for the user? Because if it makes sense for the user, Google will most likely favor that. Now, if you call that a ranking factor or not, that's up to you. For me, it's just part of the pie. It's part of the puzzle that you have to do, right? And you can see this here, that they say that, you can see that they say that, people can misunderstand that it's not about, it's not about us going back and checking the credentials. It's about, if Google was a user coming through your site, would they be able to understand who that person is and why they should pay attention to them, right? Again, I don't think Google is going back through, following the link back to LinkedIn and saying okay, they checked this box, so we're going to rank them higher. No, they just want to make sure that these people are real people. And again, I think that's more of an experience thing than it is a quote unquote ranking factor. But again, they came out and said that, that Google doesn't somehow check out our credentials. It is something, I get that people can misunderstand, but not what expect, right? But from that perspective, it is something that they do that can impact the experience, which is something else that that I think this was Gary Isles that was talking about this, is that if you the authorship piece of it is important because it's something that they take into account when they look at the authority of the site. Again, is that a quote unquote ranking factor? Sure, maybe not. However you want to label it. But again, it comes back to that Google is coming through your site as a user, and users understanding who the people are that are telling you this information is important. Google has said that a million times. They want people with firsthand experience and firsthand knowledge of a certain topic. And again, how better to prove that than this person's background, right? Again, that doesn't mean that Google's going and doing a background check on anybody. It's just more that they probably are following those links to make sure that you are helping people understand who those people are. So for me, this does not mean don't care about authorship. This means care more about authorship and understand that if you create an author page, that doesn't mean your site is going to go up and to the right. It's just a part, it's a piece of a bigger puzzle of establishing authorship and establishing expertise and authoritativeness, trustworthiness, and all that jazz. So keep that in mind as you're billing this in, right? So from that perspective, that's my opinion. And again, I will close this slide out by saying The Verge is a very angry group of people and they need to chill out. So let's, a sad slide, everybody, a sad slide here. So from that perspective, from this perspective, everyone was kind of excited, when, we'd reported and everyone reported, not just us, that FAQ and how-to rich results, were dropping, back in September, which they did. They were, quote unquote, officially removed. And this tweet from Brody Clark, who's an awesome, very entertaining SEO strategist online, and very talented dude, smart guy, that went down in September. And then again, right at the end of in sometime like the early November-ish period, they kind of came back like out of nowhere. And I had a lot of customers asking me about this, like, hey, they're all coming back. That's weird. Like, are they back in some capacity? And for a couple of months, for a month or so, it looked that way. But unfortunately, everybody, I'm sorry to bear the bad news yet again. But how-to rich results in FAQ have seemingly died again. So that is, they appear to be just gone. With the gone with the wind here, and I don't think that they're coming back for anyone outside of established healthcare sites. I saw that question here. FAQ, yes, still a thing for healthcare. But you have to be an established healthcare organization like WebMD or something like, or HealthNet or something like that. So it depends on what site you're running. Obviously, I don't know that. But yeah, they are still a thing for established, healthcare companies. But for the rest of us, the rest of us out here in the cold, I think the hope of how-to and FAQ coming back is probably dead. Like, why did this happen? Like, why did they bring them back? My guess is that they probably never really brought them back. They were probably testing out something, to show them in certain situations for sites. They ultimately didn't like what they were getting back again, and then deep six them again. But ultimately, it appears that New Year's Eve update, put the nail in the coffin for most people for these two. So either way, pour one out for your homies. I don't think that there's anything we can, nothing much we can do about this, but ultimately that is the end of the road for those, everybody. So my advice remains is to not waste your time with, putting the FAQ schema in or the how-to. It's just not going to be doing anything. Question here, would it still be useful to add FAQs for keyword rankings and under the helpful content goal? I think so. I wouldn't, I think FAQs are fine. I think like long form content, answering and asking questions is better, but there's nothing wrong with, like FAQ content is still a good strategy in my opinion, but just don't waste your time putting the schema markup on it. Again, unless you're working for WebMD here, I don't think that you're going to get a lot out of it. I think it'll just be I just think it'll be a waste of time. But another point here that was made, do you think FAQ schema will still be beneficial for SGE queries? Excuse me. I don't think so. Honestly, Google has come out and basically said there's no point in putting FAQ schema on pages anymore. I mean, John Mueller basically said that. So I don't, unless someone proves me wrong with some data, I don't think that there's any, I don't think you should waste your time with that type at this moment. We're going to have to wait for SGE to launch to see what really happens because it's still very much in test mode. But I think, I don't think you should waste your time with FAQ schema right now. That's my advice. And then moving on to, monthly, a little monthly segment here, which is this month in SGE. Not a lot in my testing group. A lot of, Search Engine Land actually released a really great article today with the study, where they were saying, that was showing that, healthcare was majorly impacted, and things of that nature. So you can go over Search Engine Land. I saw Danny, the editor, post it. So I'm going to go over and read it a little bit more in depth later on. But I saw some good stats on LinkedIn from him. But the one thing that I've started to notice is that if you Google, something that is a little bit more categorical or a little bit more transactional, so as everyone knows, obviously I have a fondness for wetsuits. I work with my buddy Chris on his site. I've been working with him for about probably 15 years at this point, just helping him out with it. And, and again, I always say that his site's a really great barometer for what's going on. But what's really interesting here is that this term, I've actually done this live on this show multiple times, has always generated a snippet automatically, right? And what I am now noticing is that a lot of, queries that were previously having the snippet generate automatically are now prompting you to generate it. So this is a new test that I'm in, that you have to actually press the button to generate the box. So that's something that I think that we should all take into account, that Google is still figuring out when to generate the box automatically, when to have this prompt, when to open the box fully, when to have it only at half mast, prompting you to click more, to open it up like an accordion. Again, I still think there's a lot of unanswered questions on Google's side. I think they're getting closer to figuring out how to launch this thing. But ultimately, it's good to note that this is a change, because I'll tell you, just last week, Googling this would have generated the box automatically and it would have opened automatically. So they're definitely testing things out. And I've seen this with a lot of transactional terms. So just keep that in mind as you're going along. And with that, everybody, with the last 3 minutes, so for me personally and professionally, 3030 is a joy. It's my favorite part of my job. I couldn't do it without all y'all showing up. 100 months seems very surreal to me. And I'm very humbled, that everybody comes. We have a big audience here, from month to month. And I really appreciate all of you. But I wanted to call out two individuals in particular that y'all don't talk to and you don't know, but they actually make this show run. And their names are Madison Ciccone and Haley Brennan. They are on every month with me, but I get to do the fun part of this show, which is come on and talk to you, crack jokes, and share knowledge and answer questions. Haley and Madison are the reason this show works. They send all the follow-up emails. They keep me on point. They remind me to show up on time. And all around are just two amazing individuals on our marketing team. So my eternal thanks to them, because 3030 would not happen without the two of them. But ultimately, turning it back to the audience, of course, none of this would happen without you. Thank you all so much for coming, month to month and listening to me rant. I know I say this every single month. This is my favorite part of my job. I would not be able to do this without you. I'm here to do 100 more if people keep showing up and if Seth lets me, but I really do appreciate all of y'all spending 30 minutes of your very valuable time with me, and I'll keep doing it if you keep showing up. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And with that, we talked a lot about algorithms today, but the only algorithm that matters is the heart, mind, and soul of your customer. If you create great content that they like and ultimately love, they will come back and be customers for life. Everybody, thank you so much once again. I'm heading to Jamaica in 29 days. I cannot wait because it is cold in New York. It is brutally cold, and I hate the cold weather. But with that said, everybody, thank you again, for another great month and another great audience, a great round of questions. With that, thank you again, and we will see you next month.